Hello and welcome to the sixth and final session of the Journal Writing Workshop. The agenda items for this session are the ones on the screen. They cover what to do next after the workshop. Most of us have traveled a long way towards writing a paper during the workshop. However, usually there are a few items left and these need to be completed. And just the list there shows what needs to be done. There's some remaining work and so on. And it's as we do that remaining work, these are things to keep in mind. So what we're doing now is looking at what to do next with the paper. It's about outstanding work. It's about managing the editorial process with the journal. And it's about what to do with reviews and revisions once they come in. So there's remaining work on this paper. It's the first item on the agenda in this session. You need to write a list of what needs to be done. It's a good idea to write a list. So it's what it is that needs to be done to finish the paper. For example, complete the methods section, and so on. Second, make sure you can schedule blocks of time. If you're doing serious writing, it's an intellectual effort, it needs blocks of time. You've got to protect your research time. For example, if you've decided that Thursday afternoon is when you will write, then avoid having any meetings scheduled during that afternoon. Third, though, there are some routine tasks to this writing, like formatting a table. That can easily be done in a spare 15 minutes. It's not intellectual work that needs committed time, devoted time. So you can slot those into smaller slots, those routine types of tasks. Fourth thing, set a realistic deadline, whatever it is. October the 3rd is the day I will finish the paper. Make sure at the outset you do set a deadline. And then something I say to every workshop participant, whoever they are. It could be Professor Smith or Dr. Jones, or it could be somebody who's just been appointed to the university, or it could be a new PhD student. Whoever they are, they may benefit from having a non-technical editor to assist with the grammar and other stylistic improvements. So next thing, manage the review and the revision process, the second item of this session. You're likely to get at least 3 or more reviews on your paper. You should take those reviews seriously. Those people writing your reviews are trying to assist you to improve your paper. In addition to formal reviews, you can also, before you submit your paper, ask colleagues for internal reviews. And if you do that, you should give these colleagues instructions, like the one shown here. Jennifer, please place some emphasis on reviewing my statistical approach. Or some comment like that. It is much easier and you get better comments if you ask a colleague for a focused comment on part of the paper. They will more easily have time to do that and will give you comments in a reasonable elapsed time. They'll also be much more interested in your paper if you ask them in that focused manner. Also, another important point as you submit your paper, you must follow the journal's instructions strictly. It's a 2-week delay if you've got some small item wrong. like the format of the headings in the paper. So, and another example, if the journal asks you to number the main sections of the paper, then do so. If you don't do it, it could easily be rejected. Probably not. But there's going to be some delay if you don't follow the instructions. You don't want an email coming back to you from an editorial assistant. You don't want an email back from an editorial assistant that's saying something like, we can't review it because it doesn't have the form that we asked you to put it in. So follow the instructions carefully. Next things when we are in this process, if you do have any doubt about the suitability of a paper, there's nothing wrong with dropping an email or a note to the editor or an associated editor to ask whether it's relevant to that journal, or if there's anything else that you've got doubt about with respect to your paper. Second thing, when you are replying to reviewers' comments, you should follow again the instructions of the editor. It's always a good idea to provide a response sheet so it's clear how you've responded to each and every item of feedback made by the reviewers or the editors. And of course, you can make a change under their suggestion. You can refute what they've said, or you can seek clarification about what they've said. However, in all of that, it's important to maintain your humility. And you should seek to be agreeable wherever possible. A heated argument between you and the editor is going to be totally unproductive. Importantly, notice that the review process takes time. Here's a little graph of how long it took for a particular person, David Pannell, for a series of articles during the period from 1998 and 2001. Now, I admit 98 to 2001 is a bit historical now, but you'll see how extreme the lengths are that it can take for a paper in the review process. So what's in the picture is David Pannell just puts up there 22 articles that were eventually published, just in the sequence, the time sequence that they were published. So the bar chart, the leftmost bar chart is the first one that was published, and the right hand one is the last one that was published, and it just gives them how long it took between submission of the article and receipt of the editor's decision, removing from that time any time that was spent in his revision of his own paper. Okay, so all that's measured there is the total review time. The first review, perhaps the second review added to that after he'd done his revisions. So it's just the time in review. And you can see the minimum time is about 70 to 75 days. The maximum time is over 700 days. That's almost 2 years. In fact, that tall one may be in excess of 2 years. It's 740 or something like that. So there can be a long period between when you first submit an article and when it gets published. Be aware of that. Next item for this session. It's about revising and resubmitting. As soon as you get a letter that's not a rejection of your article, that is a victory. A revise and resubmit means your paper is accepted. or at least you are closer to acceptance than before. But if you do what the editor and the reviewers ask of you, your paper will be accepted. So you should engage with the review process constructively, and you should regard the reviewers as helpers along the way. A critical review should not demoralize you. Do not be like me when I got my first revise and resubmit. It was a set of very critical reviews. And I simply turned around and threw everything, the paper, the reviews, the letter from the editor, I simply threw everything into the garbage bin and moved on to another paper. Do not do that. If an editor gets back to you and it's a revise and resubmit, you should buckle down and do the revision and resubmission. That's the path to the paper being accepted. It's not a rejection, so it's an acceptance. Also, it's a good idea to be systematic in your response to editors. Make a table of every comment from the reviewers and provide your response to each comment. Then send this table with your revised manuscript once you've done the revision. At the end of the process, your paper will always, or almost always, wind up being better than when initially you submitted it. That's what the review process is about. Here is an example of a revise and resubmit letter. I received it recently. You will see it says there in red, it's in need of a substantial revision. And accordingly, the editor invites me to undertake that major revision. Then in red in the second paragraph from the editor are the words, the work required is quite substantial and revision is not a guarantee that your paper will be accepted. So this was going to be a really tough review. And when I got to see what the reviewers had said, I could tell that I would just about have to rewrite the paper. Moreover, if you look at the third paragraph, it tells me you have 30 days to revise. And it was giving me until the 3rd of October. Well, I made some swift calculations and realized that it would be a good idea to ask for extra time. So I asked for another 30 days, and the paper is now due on November the 3rd. But importantly in all of this, even though it's a tough review, it's not a rejection. And if I work hard, it will be an acceptance. Here's how to set out your responses to the referee's comments. There are 3 columns. The referee's comments in column 1, your responses in column 2, and the page number in the paper where that response is, to which that response is relevant. So let's quickly look at this. The comment from the referee is really saying, I haven't given enough justification for the choice of the approach I took. Then in the second column, I've explained what I've done in response to that. I've added more justification at the end of section 2.3. The added paragraph reads as follows, and I just put in there how it is I've changed the paper. And then in the third column is the place in the paper where that is occurring. Next item on the session agenda for today, rejection. Everybody gets rejected. Even Nobel Prize winners have been rejected. Everybody, when writing journal articles, gets a rejection at some point. what you've got to do is either develop a thick skin or stop writing papers and go to some other line of work. There are coping mechanisms. One for me is to put the rejection letter, it's always this thin letter, put the thin rejection letter in the drawer. Then I take my wife out for a celebration dinner. So take your wife, partner, girlfriend, or best friend out and have a slap-up meal. Then come back to the letter, but not for a few days yet. Leave it a week and reread the letter. Then get down to it and fix any problems noted, and then prepare your paper to send to another journal. That is the right response to a rejection letter. Here's a poem by a very prestigious researcher, David Pannell. Here's a poem by him about rejection. Let me read it. It really makes good reading. You've posted in your paper to a journal of repute, and you're hoping that the referees won't send you down the chute. You'd better not build up a sense of false security. I've just received your manuscript, and I'm the referee. This power's a revelation. I'm so glad it's come to me. I can be a total bastard with complete impunity. You might have won a Nobel Prize, it matters not to me. My savage wit will not remit when I'm the referee. I used to be a psychopath, but never more will be. I can deal with my frustrations now that I'm a referee. So you just get the idea. Another important thing to bear in mind is that every paper has a home. And there's even articles on that subject. Here's one by Glans and Shepherd, just about very famous economists, leading economists, some of whom have got Nobel Prizes, leading economists who've been rejected, at least on their first attempt to publish that paper, by a leading journal. And I'll just list them. Here they are. And one catches my eye just at the top of that page, Robert May. You may not know who he is, but he is the father of what's called chaos theory. Robert May submitted this article called Simple Mathematical Models with Very Complicated Dynamics. It was submitted to the journal Econometrica. The review he got back was very brief. It said, "That's old hat, it's been done before." And Robert May then wrote back to the editor of Econometrica and said, who is the person who reviewed that? They do not know what they are talking about. And May and the editor disagreed and left it at that. Robert May simply turned the paper around and sent it to Nature, a very prestigious journal, where it was published. And it is now the leading paper in the area that's known as chaos theory. And it deals with the very, very important issues. But it was rejected, as are all these other papers. I could pick any paper out. The paper by Erlin, I could pick any of them out. Erlin's about the theory of international trade. And much of what we teach our undergraduate students is based on Erlin's theory. And it was rejected at the first hurdle. Next thing, your focus. Your focus for the future is to do these things if you are moving forward to write high quality papers. Strike a deal with a writing buddy or buddies to meet, to write serious things. Put a diary entry in for a time when you're going to do this quality writing. Seek a sign-on from your supervisor that you must be given some time to do this important work. Seek a sign-on from your colleagues. They need to respect and support you when you put a sign on your door, I'm working on a writing project. They need to let you do that without interruption. Also, do not be too ambitious. It takes time to actually do good writing. But also, you can fix some of the other issues that interfere with your time. I found it a good discipline to fix a time during the day when I'm going to answer emails. It's bad practice to be answering emails when they appear. You'll never get much done that way. Also, you need to think about some requests that you get, and you may need to say no to those requests more often. And importantly, take no or less work home, if that can be done, although in this COVID-19 circumstance, that's an impossible ask. Also, when you start a research project, you should have publications in mind, or you should plan publications right at the start of the research project. Final comments from me. I've really learned a lot in the preparation and the discussions during this workshop. I hope you have also. Take some of the process back to your workplace. As you go through the writing process, be respectful, critical, and encouraging. For example, have you acknowledged the help of your reviewers? Next, manage time effectively. It's going to take 2 to 3 hours at a time to make an important contribution to good writing, but make that a regular part of your week. Finally, celebrate the mistakes. They're a big step forward along the way. And here's something I came across quite recently. It's a really good book on writing journal articles, and I'd recommend that book. Just want to close by saying thanks for your attendance and commitment to this journal writing process. I hope you got some good value out of it. Thanks a lot.